direction if we can. Okay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And if you have any questions about the map or the area, please contact me or just drag me over to the map because we've researched it in depth. Thank you, guys.
So I'm Brad Weir, like you're spent my whole life convincing people how to pronounce my last name, and it's spelled W-E-A-R, and it's Weir. My wife Kathy and I have lived in Sumner County for 20 years, and just in the last 3 years we bought a small farm out on Wallace Road. We originally lived in Nashville, and that got too big for us, so we moved up to Hendersonville and lived by the lake, and they built the streets, and that got too big for us, and so we moved out to our farm, and we thought we'd live a simple life and enjoy the beauty out there, and do a little bit of light farming, and we've gotten into horse rescue, where we rescue animals that have been abused or neglected. And we think that's important. You know, the history of the area we think is important. The wildlife, all of that we think is important, and that has value. But I'm not naive enough to think that the sentimentality of all of that is going to stop something like this, where you've got the people that have the potential to make a whole lot of money, and that's going to win the day, so we know that. So my background is I've been the chief financial officer of several different companies. I've been chief financial officer of a couple public companies, private companies, and I've been involved in deals of significantly greater size than what we're talking about here. And the way I always approach these things is to just try to understand them. Start asking the question, open up your mind and say, what are the relevant factors that we need to think about? And then try to build a financial model that reflects kind of the range of possibility of things that you know about. And so far, I have not seen that. I've asked that be prepared, and I haven't, as far as I know, it has not been prepared, and I've asked for the information to enable me to prepare that. I haven't seen that yet. So I've certainly spent well over 100 hours of time researching this and talking to commissioners, communicating with the state commissioner of economic development, economic community development, and others, finding documents on the internet, trying to bring myself up to speed, because I had never been involved in county politics before, and so I had a lot to learn. And I think if you're going to do something like this, you got to come at it with intellectual honesty and try to truly understand it, because you're not going to be credible if you don't do that. And so I'm just trying to learn it. And so as I was preparing for this today, I started writing down what was I going to say and how was I going to build this logic to come to a conclusion that made sense. And 45 minutes down the road, I'm like, this is too complex. How do we distill this down into what's really the essence of what's going on? And I think the essence of the problem is we can't afford this. If you look at any reasonable scenario for this county, we just can't afford it. The county has a role to play for its citizens, to provide schools, educate your children, to maintain your roads, to provide public safety, courthouse, jail, control zoning so that we have growth that is responsible and is consistent with the values of the community. That's the county's job. Well, in 2015, the county couldn't afford to do that, so they raised your taxes. They went 23% increase in your taxes because they couldn't afford to do what they were supposed to do. It's just the baseline stuff, and there's a big story behind that, and I don't think we should be criticizing the current commissioners for that, but nonetheless, we couldn't afford to do what we were supposed to do as a baseline. At the same time, we increased our bonds by $70 million. We went out and borrowed money against the future of this county, upon which we're going to pay interest, and that we have to pay back to do things like deferred maintenance on schools. Yeah, we added some new capacity, but all of these things were things that should have been on somebody's radar, and we should have been planning for them. So now we're spending tomorrow's money to do the things that we need to get done today, right? So we just can't afford it. So if you look at these projects, and there's a lot of them now, and you would not believe how many of these projects that there are. Historically, they take a minimum of 10 years to get off the ground. So some state or county or city or other industrial authority that owns that land is going to sit on that land for 10 years. They're going to lose whatever tax base, and I know the tax base of this land being agricultural is not that great. But they take on the maintenance of that land. They take on the security of that land. They have to prepare that land for a tenant and make it attractive for a tenant. And when they get 10, 15 years down the road, they get a lot more flexible in who they're going to let in out there and the terms that they're going to allow them. And in every case, there are tax abatements that they make. That we got to recruit this company in. Hey, we can go here, or we can go to the site in South Alabama, or we can go to one in northern Georgia, or we can go to any of the 19 sites in the southeast that have over 3,000 acres that are already certified to bring people in. All but 2 of those have said that they will break those sites into whatever plots are necessary to attract the industry. So if we got a 1,000-acre site, we're not just competing with 18, 19, 3,000-acre sites. What's 3 times 19? That's what, 57? 57 sites. And then the number of sites that are below 1,000 acres. So it's hugely competitive, and these companies know that. So Chattanooga, it took them 27 years to get Volkswagen to come in. And the state worked with them on that. So between the money that came from the state, the money that came from the county, the tax abatements that were made by everyone, Volkswagen got $877 million worth of tax help on that. And that included a new expansion that they announced that they were going to do. Well, if you guys hear the news, Volkswagen got involved in some deceptive practices where they modified their emissions software on their diesel cars so that they showed that they passed the tests when they didn't. And so the federal government came down on them like a load of bricks and fined them billions of dollars. Volkswagen has now stopped the production of the diesel Passat in 2015 when they were expanding. And this isn't over. So this is just compounding risk. You spend $877 million and you're dancing with the devil and you just don't know it, right? So these things take 10 years, at least 17 years. If we were to move forward and buy the land, again, we can't afford to do what we need to do for basic services. We're not going to see a penny return on this, any material. I mean, they'll tell you that you'll see some sales taxes. So in the answers that the executive gave to questions that were directed by the citizens, they said that this, at 25% production, this would generate $2.4 million worth of taxable sales a year. Well, geez, we get 2.25% of that. That's $54,000. Awesome. We're going to spend $20 million. We're going to take on all of this unknowable, unquantifiable risk. And if we're lucky, within 10 years, we're going to get somebody that's in there. So when I say unknowable and unquantifiable risk, right now, all that's being asked is that we fund a feasibility study to determine whether the land itself is suitable to do this. But if you know that you can't afford it, why do the study? So at the end of the day, you're going to go through all this, the work. And by the way, this doesn't tell you what it's going to cost to do it. It's only going to tell you if the land is suitable. Then when you find a tenant, you have to do a master plan. And when you do that master plan, you're going to say, okay, what are we going to do with Dobbins Pike, the narrow 2-lane road? What are we going to do on Wallace Road and Walnut Creek? All of those questions. Who's going to pay for the flyover of CSX? Who's going to pay for the utilities to come in? What concessions are we actually going to make? 20 million, 40 million, 60 million. State of Tennessee, they got a lot of talent there. 40 million to 216 million. And they never planned on that. When the state of Tennessee and Haywood County brought that to the taxpayers, they said, we're going to bring in one auto manufacturer. And it was going to be beautiful. And we're not going to raise your taxes. Well, now, 11 years later, they've said, no, it's not realistic. We're not going to get just one auto manufacturer. We're going to have, because nobody's going to come in and take the full 4,100 acres. So we'll break that up, which was not what the taxpayers expected. the taxpayers of Haywood County have seen their taxes go up in each of the last 2 years. So there wasn't going to be any taxes, but, you know, reality sets in and there are actual taxes. So my position would be that even under the best scenario, we can't afford it. So there's really no sense in spending $750,000 to know what we already know. You know, okay, so the land's suitable, but we still can't afford it. You know, I would venture that our school, you know, anyone in the school system would say, I could sure use $750,000. Our sheriff could use $750,000. Our public works could use $750,000. I mean, there is no shortage of uses for that money that has a purely identifiable, clearly definable result today. And in this case, again, it's just throwing good money, opening the door to throw good money after bad. And this would just really be a money pit. So I had notes. And let's see if there's just anything else that I missed on that. So I think that's summary. So every time I talk about this, and I talk to Steve Graves and Jim Vaughn and Mo Taylor, I learn something every time. Kevin Pomeroy has given me a lot of information. So my information is evolving right now, and my knowledge. Last thing I ever want to do is to misstate something. So if I have misstated anything, it's an error. It's, certainly was not intentional, and I intend to get better and better at this. But I think at the end of the day, to me, the most compelling thing that we need to do is that we need to hold our commissioners accountable to do the same thing that we would do in private enterprise if we were going to spend our money, and that is to build a responsible financial model that analyzes the high and the low side in the best case so that we can at least put it in a box and have a real discussion about the true issues and what's going to be involved in doing this. So whatever any of y'all can do, I'm going to make it my mission that if this thing ever gets voted and that model is not done, I'm going to make sure that come election time that everybody's going to know that.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
Thank you.